So greetings from Pennsylvania once again, and welcome back to another video. It's a beautiful morning. It's October 7th, Tuesday morning. Yeah, so today we're going to head down to the Philly area. We're going to focus on doing the Battle of Germantown. We'll probably head over to the Wissahickon Park as well, film 2 other videos. It's a beautiful place, but we're going to kind of focus on the Battle of Germantown right now. So we're not in Philly yet. I'm here back in my hometown of Womelsdorf at the Conrad Weiser Park, but I'm going to talk a little bit about the battle here just initially, and then we're going to head to the Philly area on Germantown Avenue. So we'll discuss some initial things here, and I'll show you how the battle was set up using my little risk game pieces once again, and then we'll head down to Philly. We're going to be heading to Germantown Avenue, which goes through Germantown, which these days is basically just part of Philadelphia. I'm going to show some places from the safety of the Jeep. I'm not getting out in Germantown, just to be honest with you. I mean, to be honest, Germantown, that area is not exactly the safest spot in the world. But there's 2 places I'm going to show you. I'll talk a little bit why in a moment, but there's Vernon Park was the one end of the German line, the British line, and then all the way up to something called the Chew House, which we'll try to drive around. That's all fenced off. It'd be cool to get into it, but it's all fenced off for reasons because it's in Germantown. But yeah, so those places will come and play with what happened during the battle. But like I said, I'm not going to get out anywhere. I know a year or so ago I drove through there accidentally, and yeah, it's a sketchy place, to be honest. I know some people might think it's not, but I know the one spot, I was at a stoplight and there was just a guy with a shopping cart just repeatedly bumping it into like a light pole or a tree. I forget what he's doing, just boom, just repeatedly. I think he was on something, if you know what I mean. So it was just there was a lot of that kind of activity going around. Just you can tell just by driving around. So I'm not getting out anywhere. It's not. I know some people, get on my case about saying Philly is not a safe place. Well, it's not, depending on where you're at. So we're not getting out in Germantown. All right. So we got our pieces set up. Of course, we have the Continental forces, the American forces, the British forces over here. Back here is Philadelphia. We'll talk about why there's just a few people back there, but this is kind of how things are set up. Because the Battle of Germantown took place on October 4th. Of course, this is all part of our Philly campaign, or the Philadelphia campaign, because it started with the Battle of Brandywine on September 11th, which resulted in a loss on the American side, which did allow the British to continue moving towards Philadelphia. There was the Battle of the Clouds, which happened on the 16th, which wasn't really much of a battle, and my soldiers just blew down because of the wind. We'll put them back up again. But yeah, and then a number of days later, on the 20th of September, was the Battle of Paoli, or the Paoli Massacre, which we did a video on that, talk about how it wasn't really a massacre, just a significant win by the British. So things are quiet for a little bit, but on October 4th, well, actually, on September 26th, after the Battle of Paoli, the British actually moved into Philadelphia and seized the capital of the new American Republic. Put my soldiers back up here. So yeah, the 26th, the British actually took control of Philadelphia. General Howe of the British, he left 3,000 troops in Philadelphia proper and then moved the bulk of his army just to the edge of town, outskirts of town, to the suburb of Germantown. And when Washington found out about this, he was determined to attack the British there at Germantown. His idea was to surprise and destroy the British army. So he had a plan for that, which I'm going to show you in a moment. I'm going to show you what the plan was. We're not going to finish the battle here at this spot. Well, actually, let's do this first. I'll tell you what we're going to do now. All right, so here we've got our little risk pieces again. One of the British dudes fell down. This is over in Philadelphia. There's just 3,000 troops there. Here's Germantown. And of course, Washington was out this way. What he decided to do was to do like a 4-pronged attack. So he's going to send the militia, 2 columns to attack the flanks. General Greene was going to send his column center left, or center right, I guess in this case. And then General Sullivan was going to attack this way. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4 main columns to try and surprise, and destroy the British at Germantown. That was the plan. Not a bad one. It looks set up pretty well. You get the main assault, 2 columns coming in this way, and then these are the flanking columns, which were Pennsylvania militia, on the edges. That was the plan. But as you well know, things don't always go to plan. Oh, train. We'll talk about why later, but now we're going to head to Germantown. So we're going to drive up Germantown Avenue. I'm going to point out what's called Vernon Park. and then I think we'll head up to the Chew House. I'll show you where the Chew House, I'll quick show you where it was here, Vernon Park and the Chew House. I think we'll be able to drive around the block there, around the Chew House, but like I said, I'm not getting out, and it's all fenced off either way. I looked it up on Google Street Maps. It looks pretty, yeah, no, it just looks pretty sketchy there. And then I'll find another spot, probably in the Wissahickon Park somewhere, to talk about what actually happened during the battle then. This ended up being a loss to the colonial forces, to Washington, but we'll talk about why later. I'll have my little army set up again and show you exactly what happened during the battle. Yeah, so as we go up Germantown Avenue, remember Philly proper is over here. Germantown Avenue goes up this way, right, this is where they were, the British on Germantown Avenue. When we get to Vernon Park, that's gonna be right here. The Chew House was up here. And that's where the British held out really well at the Chew House and kind of hindered Sullivan's attack coming this way. But yeah, so Vernon Park and the Chew House. All right, so let's hop in the Jeep and let's get going all the way to Germantown. So remember those two places, the Vernon House and the Chew House. And then we'll show you, like I said, later, hopefully if I can find a nice flat surface somewhere in the Wissahickon. I'll take my risk pieces with me, gotta remember that. Keep them in my backpack, and I'll show you what happened during the battle. Like I said, things did not go the way Washington hoped, but that's battle. All right, let's go to Germantown. All right, we have made it to Germantown Avenue. Kind of like how I remember. It's got these rails right in the middle of the road. Yeah. But there are these like cool cobblestone street edges here that are neat too. You can see that on the camera. Some neat artwork on some of the buildings. Yeah, on our left is the one park. We don't want that one. We're looking for, was it Vernon Park? That'll take us to the British left flank. Their red light. But man, how different this would have looked, you know, back in 1777. You know, buildings like that may have been around, but there's some older stuff here. Yeah, so far, not terribly bad. I said I was here last time. There was some really sketchy spots, but I'm still not getting out anywhere along here. You can make fun of me if you want, but yeah. Yeah, but regardless of your feelings of this area, it is an interesting road. You got the cobblestone on the right and left, and then these two rail lines going right through the middle here. There's some interesting red light architecture too, but certain places there's a lot of trash and stuff. But anyway, you know, there's another old house where that garbage truck is. Some old stone building over there. So some of these buildings might be from back in that time. Yeah, still looking for Vernon Park. I just think I got my GPS on up there. I think we're getting close. Alright, so I see Vernon Park coming up on the GPS. And I think I can, oh yeah, we got a green light. I gotta pay attention too. Yeah, so up in front of this bus, there's a wooded area. That is Vernon Park. Like I said, that'll be where the left flank of the British lines were. Here where there is Vernon Park. Not sure if they have any monuments over there or not, but like I said, we're not stopping in. There's a view of it over there. It's nice. Kind of looks like a nice area, but I'm not getting out. I know. But yeah. So, battle-wise, this is where the battle would have raged right here. We're going up the British line, basically right here now. This is where they were attacked. Of course, the colonial forces would have been coming from your left. And the British would have been established kind of either here or just on our right. But man, like I said, it looks so different from back then. Alright, but we're going to keep going up. We're going to be looking for Cliveden Avenue or Cliveden Road to try and find the Chew House. Yeah, so just continuing to drive up through the center of the battle line, actually, here. Back then, you know, probably been, you know, it's a lot of, you know, colonial houses, maybe farmlands and fields, maybe some woods yet. There's some old buildings. There's an old building. There's something called the Johnson House. Alright, we're coming up to it. I see a sign there for Cliveden, so we need to turn right up here onto Cliveden Street. So some of the heaviest fighting took place between Sullivan's forces and the British. I think I need to turn right here. Cliveden. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's packed here anyway. Cars. Yeah, the Cliveden, the Chew House. Oh, man, I don't know if we'll even see it here. Yeah, wait, if I want. Yeah, right here, just all that fencing. The Chew House is right in there. All those signs and everything. There's a meeting, some kind of meeting going on. Yeah, that's the Chew House in there. All right, I gotta make my way back to Germantown here. All right, we are back on Germantown Avenue and heading towards the eastern flank of the British lines up this way. And out this way on the extreme right flank of the British is where the Pennsylvania militia would also have attacked them. Same with the extreme left flank. Alright, but I think I'm going to turn the camera off for now and I'll catch up with you later. We'll talk about what actually happened during the battle and why the American forces lost. Alright, so we have made it out of Germantown. We're off the Germantown Avenue. We're now here in the Wissahickon Park at what's called the Kitchen Lane parking area. Kind of a nice little spot here. Only a couple cars parked here, but I got my troops set up on the Jeep there. It's only kind of flat area around here, so we'll have to work. But let's talk about the battle and what actually happened and why the American troops lost. So here is our battle scene once again. Of course, back here is Philadelphia, where Howe left about 3,000 troops that brought the rest up to Germantown. And then Washington wanted to take advantage of this situation. He was determined to attack, do like a surprise attack and destroy the main British force here. Once again, he divided his army up to 4 columns. We did some Pennsylvania militia on either flank. We had Sullivan's troops here and Greene's troops over here. So what happened? Oh yeah, down here is Vernon Park, and up here would be the Chew House, from where I showed you, driving up Germantown Avenue. Unfortunately, there was heavy fog that day, so that kind of bogged things down, made things difficult, communications and things like that. Now, if this would have been a fully coordinated attack, it may have worked, but things did not go to plan. Let me use my left hand here. So Sullivan moved down first, and Greene didn't move down as quickly, and he got bogged down here at the Chew House. Quite a bit of British resistance at this point. And unfortunately, General Greene didn't move down till later, but by the time he started moving down, General Sullivan started to retreat. Like I said, they met more than expected resistance at the Chew House, and they're running low on ammo, and they started hearing cannons back here as if more British troops are moving up. So he started to retreat back this way, and of course, as he's retreating, General Greene is advancing, and they kind of ran into each other a little bit and got confused and started actually firing at each other. Of course, they kind of figured that out in a little bit, but the problem was, as Greene was advancing, Sullivan was no longer over here. He had retreated back, and as he was advancing, that left his flank open over here, and the British actually came in this way. Whoops, as I knocked him down. Now that Sullivan had retreated, well, that left no option but for Greene to also retreat as well. And what about the two militia groups flanking on their side? Well, they had minimal impact except to divert British attention for a bit. It didn't work. That didn't really work as planned either. So yeah, because Sullivan met unexpected resistance, he had to retreat, and they ran into each other back here, Sullivan and Greene. But because Sullivan had retreated, like I said, that left Greene open on the side, and he had to retreat as well. So the Battle of Germantown ended with a British victory. But that is the Battle of Germantown then, kind of in a nutshell. Because there's always more that goes on in these battles. I'm just giving you kind of the basic scenario of what happened. But yeah, would things have been different if it wasn't so foggy that day and they have communicated better with each other? But probably, but that's the way war is. That's the way battles are. You know, the weather plays a part. Like we did the other battle recently, the Battle of the Clouds, where just as the two sides were getting ready to clash, just instant, you know, just a major downpour came down and just ended that fight altogether. So the weather has a big impact on these battles. So yeah, Washington lost that battle. You know, it wasn't a severe loss. It's more of a strategic loss, but another loss nonetheless. So at this point, the British are in control of Philadelphia, the capital. There's one more battle we gotta do before we have the winter of 77, 78 at Valley Forge. It is the Battle of White Marsh, which we'll do next in this series. Also, we got a video on Fort Mifflin coming up, which I actually filmed several weeks ago, but time-wise, it happens after the Battle of Germantown. But yeah, I'm here at the Wissahickon Park. I'm gonna do a little bit of hiking here as well. Got one video that kind of deals with the Revolutionary War. That's something called the Toleration Statue. Maybe some other hiking. So yeah, there you go, the Battle of Germantown. Thanks for watching, folks, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one.